Join us as we unmask a nasty and brutal war between two brothers. One, a celebrated doctor who treated presidents. The other, his personal servant forced to take dictation while his master sat on the toilet. Their 60-year battle would birth a breakfast empire, end in bankruptcy and blindness, and climax with a letter of reconciliation that arrived 8 years too late, after one brother was already dead and buried. On the highest point above Gull Lake, Michigan, stands a 15,000-square-foot Tudor palace. The man who built it called it simply the cottage. But there was nothing simple about W.K. Kellogg, or the decades of humiliation that drove him to build it. For 25 years, he was a servant, not to a stranger, but to his own brother. He worked 120-hour weeks for $9. He ran alongside his brother's bicycle with a notebook, ready to capture any brilliant thought. He stood in the bathroom taking dictation while his employer sat on the toilet. He had to call his own brother Dr. Kellogg, never John, never brother. Always the formal title, always the reminder of who was master and who was slave. The employer was John Harvey Kellogg, one of the most famous physicians in America. The servant was W.K. Kellogg, the man whose signature still appears on cereal boxes worldwide. This is the story of how cornflakes were invented, not to stop people from pleasuring themselves as internet legend claims, but as a health food so bland, so tasteless, that one woman broke her tooth on it. It is the story of how one brother became a titan of industry, while the other descended into bankruptcy and madness. And it is the story of a letter that arrived too late. The palace and the servant. By 1925, W.K. Kellogg was finally rich. His company produced 120,000 boxes of cereal every single day. At 65, after a lifetime of poverty and servitude, he built himself a paradise. He chose Gull Lake, 15 miles from Battle Creek. The estate covered 32 acres, with 1,600 feet of shoreline. Authentic Tudor half-timbering, leaded glass windows with heraldic shields, a Dutch windmill, a greenhouse producing fresh flowers daily, a pagoda by the water. When landscapers suggested planting young trees, W.K. refused. He told them, "At his age, you cannot wait for trees to grow." He ordered fully mature trees transplanted instead. He had waited long enough for everything else in life. But to understand this palace, we have to go back to Battle Creek in the 1860s, to two brothers whose bond would shape American breakfast, and whose hatred would last a lifetime. The doctor and the disappointment. Battle Creek, Michigan wasn't just any town. It was ground zero for the Seventh-day Adventists, a religious movement convinced the world was ending. They rejected meat, alcohol, tobacco, coffee, and tea. The human body was a temple to be kept pure. John Harvey Kellogg, born in 1852, contracted tuberculosis as a child. One lung barely functioned, but his mind was brilliant. The church sent him to medical school in New Jersey, then Michigan, then New York. He returned at 24 as a fully credentialed physician, ready to transform the struggling Western Health Reform Institute into something magnificent. 8 years later, W.K. was born, the seventh of 16 children. Where John Harvey was celebrated, W.K. was overlooked. The problem was his eyes. He could barely see the blackboard. Teachers assumed he was slow. Nobody thought to check his vision. At 13, W.K. dropped out to sell brooms door to door while his brother headed to medical school. In 1876, John Harvey renamed the institute the Battle Creek Medical and Surgical Sanitarium, known as the SAN, and it became the most famous health resort in America. Presidents came, along with Edison, Ford, Amelia Earhart, and John D. Rockefeller Jr. That same year, 16-year-old WK walked through the doors, not as a patient, but as his brother's bookkeeper. The Sanitarium of Horrors. Dr. Kellogg stood 5 feet 4 inches, dressed entirely in white with a white cockatoo on his shoulder. He believed 90% of disease originated in the bowels. His solution was an enema machine pumping 15 quarts of water per minute. Patients received multiple enemas daily. Half a pint of yogurt was given by mouth, the other half was pumped directly into the rectum. There were vibrating chairs that shook at 60 oscillations per second, slapping machines that literally beat patients, light therapy cabinets, and electrical current treatments. But Dr. Kellogg's deepest obsession was not the bowels. It was sex. He married in 1879 but never consummated the marriage. They maintained separate bedrooms for 40 years. He wrote that masturbation caused acne, weak vision, epilepsy, and insanity. For boys, he recommended circumcision without anesthesia because he believed the pain would create a beneficial association. For girls, he recommended applying carbolic acid directly to the clitoris. These were not fringe ideas. He published them in bestsellers and lectured to packed auditoriums. His entire dietary program was designed to suppress sexual desire. Heavy, flavorful foods inflamed the passions. Bland food kept the body calm. This philosophy led directly to Cornflakes. The birth of bland. Breakfast cereal was not new. In 1863, Dr. James Caleb Jackson invented granular, graham bread baked until it was hard as pebbles, broken into pieces and soaked overnight in milk. It was so hard it broke a woman's tooth. But it required intense chewing, which Dr. Kellogg loved. He had discovered Horace Fletcher, known as the Great Masticator, who preached that food should be chewed 32 to 50 times before swallowing. Shallots required 720 chews, 10 minutes of chewing before swallowing. Dr. Kellogg made patients chew at least 40 times while he sang, "Chew, chew, chew. That is the thing to do." He wanted something that required chewing but would not break teeth. When he heard about shredded wheat, described as tasteless and difficult to chew, like eating a whisk broom, he tried to buy the rights. When he could not, he decided to make his own version. Enter W.K. Kellogg, who had been in his brother's shadow the entire time. For months in 1895, the two brothers and John's wife tested ways to flatten grain. Finally, they discovered that soaking and boiling grain, then pushing it through rollers, created flakes. They called them granos. The patent was filed. There was exactly one ingredient: grain. No sugar, no salt, nothing. Perfectly, deliberately bland. The wink heard round the world. By 1897, they had opened the Sanitas Food Company, selling toasted cornflakes. But Dr. John Harvey Kellogg insisted they remain tasteless health food. WK saw potential beyond health nuts. Cold cereal was easier than hot porridge that took hours to cook. But John refused to change the formula. This left a void. A former patient named Charles W. Post filled it. He opened a factory in Battle Creek producing grape nuts. Basically Kellogg's granola, but smaller and sweetened. Post became a millionaire. Battle Creek became cereal Silicon Valley. Dozens of factories opened. Everyone made money except WK, who was still his brother's servant. Time and again, WK begged to change the formula or launch advertising. Time and again, Dr. John refused. Then John traveled to Europe. WK went rogue, adding salt, malt, and sugar. People loved it. John hated it. He demanded that WK change it back. WK quit. The sanitarium then burned down. WK returned to help rebuild, becoming the financial brains behind the reconstruction. When it was done, John was deep in debt. WK saw his opportunity. He offered to buy the rights to cornflakes. John needed money and he agreed. In 1906, WK founded the Battle Creek Toasted Cornflake Company. He was 46 years old and finally his own man. His marketing was brilliant. He spent a third of his capital on a single ad in Ladies' Home Journal. The ad read, "Wink at your grocer and see what you get." Grocers handed out free samples. Sales in New York increased 15-fold. He added something else, his signature on every box. That signature remains today. The war. John Harvey watched his younger brother's success with fury. In 1908, he launched his own cereal company using the Kellogg name. The brothers sued each other for a decade. In 1920, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that WK owned exclusive rights to the Kellogg name on cereal. John had to repay all profits. They barely spoke afterward. When business required meetings, WK insisted on a third party being present. WK built his empire. John's sanitarium, meanwhile, began failing. His methods went out of fashion. He focused on eugenics and forced sterilization. The Great Depression hit. In the 1930s, the sanitarium went bankrupt. The letter. In 1943, John Harvey Kellogg was dying at 91. He thought about his brother. It had been 37 years since WK left the sanitarium, and 23 years since the court ruling. He picked up a pen and dictated a letter to his assistant. He admitted he had treated WK badly, taken him for granted, and failed to recognize his contributions. He said he was sorry. His assistant felt the apology was beneath her employer's dignity. Instead of mailing it, she filed it away. The letter sat in a cabinet for 8 years. John Harvey died on December 14, 1943. WK, now 83 and completely blind, never knew the letter existed. 8 years later, someone finally found the letter and delivered it to WK. By then, John had been dead for nearly a decade. WK had someone read it aloud. What he felt, no one recorded. Regret? Satisfaction that his brother finally acknowledged the truth? Or simply the hollow realization that reconciliation was impossible? WK Kellogg died in 1951 at age 91, the same age as his brother. Together forever. They are buried side by side in Oak Hill Cemetery in Battle Creek. 2 headstones, 2 names, 1 family destroyed by ambition and pride. The sanitarium is gone. The enemas and vibrating chairs are remembered as curiosities from a strange era. But the cottage by the lake still stands, now part of Michigan State University. Every morning, people around the world reach for boxes bearing WK Kellogg's signature without thinking about the brothers who invented them, the decades of humiliation, or the family destroyed in their wake. WK once wrote that he feared he would always be poor. He was wrong. He became one of the wealthiest men in America, giving away $66 million to help children. But he was right about something else. As a boy, he never learned to play. As a man, he never learned to forgive. The letter arrived too late. The reconciliation never came. The war over the Kellogg name is finally over.